City in Potchefstroom. Thank you. So, I don't know, I'm having some glitches. I don't know why my...
What's this doing?
It's not changing the slides.
Oh,
Let me just see. Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay. So, ocean pollution is escalating, posing the threat of severe consequences to human and ecological health. The global ocean covers approximately 70% of the Earth's surface, which plays a vital role for billions, providing food, livelihood, cultural, and recreational value. So the majority of contaminants polluting the marine environment originate from anthropogenic activities. Some of the pollutants include nutrients, your pesticides, manufactured chemicals, your mercury, oil spills, but at number one is your plastic waste. So plastic is one of the major contributors to ocean pollution and is now known to be an emerging anthropogenic pollutant. Global plastic production shows exponential growth over the past decade, with a total of 630 million metric tons produced from 1950 to 2015. And this rose to an annual production rate of 348 million metric tons in 2017. Its expectancy is to triple in the year 2040 if no plan of action is taken. The current top global plastic producers are China, Asia, Europe, and the collective members of your American Free Trade, which are Canada, USA, and Mexico. The percentages are right at the bottom of their names. So plastics are incorporated into our daily lives. And in order for us to address the issue, we need to educate ourselves with what we're dealing with. So we've got 7 different types of plastics, and that's most commonly found in the environment. So we'll start off with your polyethylenes. These are very cost-effective plastics. Your plastic bottles and your grocery bags are made out of your polyethylene. Polypropylene is used in your everyday products such as your candy wrappers and your labeling of your bottles, etc. Then you've got polystyrene, which is high density polystyrene and low density polystyrene, which these are slow biodegraders. They're very difficult to recycle, and it's most commonly found in your fast foods. We've got polyethylene terephthalate, your PVC. They're high resistant to environmental degradation. Thus, they're always incorporated into your pipes, your gutters, and your irrigation, for irrigation. Then you have polyamines, which is like your nylon fibers and most commonly found in your fishing gear. And then you have polyurethanes. So polyurethanes are your microscopic resin molecules that are bound tightly together, and it's used in varnish, in coating of ships to provide insulation. So plastics undergo degradation, such as your physical abrasions, as well as your chemical changes that causes them to break up into microplastics. Microplastics are classified as plastics which are 5 millimeters and smaller. In the environment, microplastics can be classed into 5 categories, which are your fragments, fibers, film, foam, and pellets. Microplastics can also be manufactured into smaller particles, which are incorporated into personal care products such as facial cleansers, shampoos, and your toothpastes. So now that we know what the basics of plastics are, and we've dug a bit deep into the origin of them and where what different products can be made from plastics, now we need to know what enters our aquatic ecosystems. So every piece of plastic that has been produced still exists in the environment. In a few years, we may be experiencing another, like a plastic pandemic. So 75 to 199 million tons of plastic waste are currently in our ocean. 15 billion kilograms of plastic waste enters the ocean every year, and 8 million pieces of plastic enters our ocean every day. So now that we know about the plastic production, Our coastal plastic waste, there's currently 99.5 million tons of plastic in our ocean. And this is sourced from our point source pollutions and our non-point source pollutions. And that's because of coastal management, due to municipal, agricultural, and industrial waste. And then we've got our non-point sources, which are your maritime activities, commercial and recreational fishing, as well as cruises and shipping. So what I want to share today is the distribution of plastic along the ocean, the different oceans. So I'm going to share some results that we've done in 2022. This was a desktop study focusing on the spatial distribution of plastic litter in the 5 oceans. Right. So with that, we would be identifying possible hotspots. So we start off with the Pacific Ocean. The Pacific Ocean is the largest water mass on the planet. This ocean borders some of the world's largest economic players, such as Japan, Russia, and the United States of America. The highest concentration of plastic waste in the Pacific is located between California and Hawaii. And this is known as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, reported as the largest accumulation of plastic on the Earth. Okay, so this map basically shows the data points of where we've captured, of where we've identified the plastic hotspots. So with these transits and these little yellow dots is where we've taken data to actually show what is actually in that specific ocean. So the origin of most plastics, mainly in the Pacific Ocean, was it was found to be fragments, your lines, and your buoys. So research on the plastic waste in North Pacific Garbage Patch detected your PCBs as well. A lot of studies focused on chlorinated pesticides, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, and all of these are classified to be carcinogenic and endocrine disrupting, or have those specific properties. With the Atlantic Ocean, it covers about 1/5 of the Earth's surface. The Atlantic is reported to be the largest drainage area, meaning it has several major rivers flowing into it, and these include the Niger, the Rhine, the Mississippi, the Amazon, and the Congo rivers. And the most polluted parts of the Atlantic are the Baltic Sea, the Mediterranean, the Gulf of Guinea, and the northeastern coast of the United States. So again, these are the sites of the macroplastic data that we've collected, and it was more site specific, and there was more data that we collected for the northern hemisphere than the southern hemisphere. Okay, so what happens, marine pollution near the populated coastal areas of the Atlantic Ocean is increasing due to activities like fishing, ocean dumping, and offshore drilling. And the biggest sources of pollution are land-based sources via mismanagement of municipal, industrial, and agricultural resources, as I've mentioned earlier. Then we have your Indian Ocean, which is the 3rd largest of the 5 world's oceans. And some of the countries on the rim of the Indian Ocean have the highest population densities of globally and mismanagement of plastic waste, namely Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, India, and Bangladesh. Some of the most plastic polluted rivers empty into the Indian Ocean, such as the Ganges and the Indus River. So again, you can see there's a lot of data points that we could collect here with the amount of plastic debris located on this specific ocean. And what was found was a lot of abandoned, lost, and discarded fishing gear by the fishing industry, and it represented the largest proportion of plastic pollution in this ocean. So there was a lot of plastic bottles found, food containers, foam, and cigarette butts, and also single plastic bags were found in abundance. And this is also due to the mismanagement of plastic waste across that coastline. Then we move on to the Arctic Ocean. The Arctic Ocean is the smallest of the world's 5 major oceans. This ocean has some unique features. including that the Arctic is covered by perennial ice. The Arctic Ocean receives approximately more than 10% of the global river discharge, but only contains 1% of the volume of the global ocean. So again, we found data for four specific location sites only, and it was fairly distributed along the coast of the Arctic Ocean. What was found was ocean-based plastics found in the Arctic are mainly a result of fishing in that area, and except for the Bering Strait connecting to the Pacific Ocean, the Labrador Sea, and the Greenland connecting to the Atlantic Ocean, the Arctic is almost surrounded by North America, Eurasia, and Greenland. And what was most of the things or data that was found there was from fishing gear. Okay, so I don't know, maybe it's because of the ice or that people are not really on the coastal areas, so there's not much pollution on that side. Then the Antarctic Ocean. So the Antarctic Ocean or the Southern Ocean was not always recognized as an ocean. The National Geographic only recognized the Antarctic as the fifth world's ocean. I think it was quite recently. And the Antarctic is quite unique as it is the only ocean that is not defined by a bordering continent. Rather, it's defined by the Antarctic circumpolar current. Okay, so that's something interesting about this ocean. So here also there was not much data available. It was very limited and was very spatially distributed along the coastal areas. So what was found was, according to like some studies, the weight of the whaling era lifted in the Antarctic seas around the turn of the 20th century left the Antarctic continent and outlying islands inhabited by researchers and tourists, only traversing the seas. So these activities are the main contributors to plastic pollution in the Antarctic, as it was discovered that the litter found on the islands surrounding the Antarctica continent was made up only of historic items from the era of exploration and shipwrecks from the 20th century. So that's quite interesting with regards to the distribution of plastic around the different seas, the global seas. But now we come to the coastal areas of Africa. So Africa is rated the second most polluted region in the world and is projected to become a hotspot of waste generation and mismanagement. So approximately 190,000 tons of plastic waste is leaked into the ocean from African countries. And South Africa, unfortunately, is the contributes to the largest volume of plastic waste that's leaked into the ocean with 107,000 tons. And the most common polymers from this waste is high density polyethylene, low density polyethylene, polypropylene, and polyethylene. So South Africa has been placed 11th in the world as a possible contributor to plastic pollution. And the main drivers of plastic pollution, not only in South Africa, but in the African aquatic ecosystems, are due to human population growth, urbanization, and industrialization. Also, this causes like an increase in wastewater. Wastewater treatment plants are not fully equipped to remove microplastics from these from wastewater. And that also goes into our aquatic systems, our rivers, our oceans. So another thing as well is, I know in South Africa, the department here has agreed for the disposal of effluent into the marine environment. It's done in different European countries as well. So this is also a major contributor for plastic pollution in the ocean. So what are the effects of microplastics? So we'll start off with the effects on marine water quality. So plastic polymers contain harmful chemicals that may leach into the water, promoting chemical pollution. Chemicals are known to be toxic and have a lot of endocrine disrupting factors. So this also poses a threat to the environment, animals, to humans. What are the effects on biota? So marine species are known to ingest microplastics as they're unable to distinguish their food it's detrimental because once these species ingest plastics, it causes like blockages of the intestinal tract, internal abrasions, choking, false sense of satiation, starvation, and then death. So that's very, very unfortunate. Then we have the triple planetary crisis. So plastic pollution exacerbates each aspect of this crisis, amplifying the threats of climate change, biodiversity loss, as well as pollution. Plastic production and disposal contributes to climate change through the release of greenhouse gas emissions at every stage of the plastic life cycle. Plastic pollution directly harms biodiversity by entangling marine animals and disrupting food chains. Plastic pollution contributes to the environmental degradation by polluting aquatic ecosystems, carrying harmful chemicals and bacteria, and also contributing to antibiotic resistance. So in the end, all of this just climbs, it goes through the food chain and then directly harms future generations. So that's the direct impact of plastic pollution on human health and the future generation. So then, to address this crisis, we need to tackle plastic pollution by implementing an action plan that links global and local initiatives. So we've got different levels to this. Level one would then be your consumers, and that's where we need initiatives for entrepreneurship, alternative to researching and implementing alternatives to plastics using more biodegradable plastics, promoting a circular economy, creating public awareness, and creating more citizen science. So like what we're doing right now, it's more like creating awareness around the whole situation. Then the level two would then be your governing bodies, your policymakers implementing global policies and frameworks to address plastic pollution at that level. And in the end, we then achieve sustainable development goals, and which is what we want to achieve with all our research. So then on a personal level, what we can do is that we need to stop our reliance on plastic. We need to have more responsible usage of plastic. So recycle, use more eco-friendly options, opt for using something other than plastic. And then what I've noticed a lot about like people in general is that we value or we have this out of sight, out of mind concept. So for instance, I'd be driving and I have a plastic bottle or something in my car, and the first thing I would do, because I don't want to dirty my car, is throw it out of the window, which is honestly, it's something that we don't think about, but we are really destroying the environment because, as you know, like I know in South Africa, our systems don't really work so well. So there's no people to actually clean up behind us, you know. There's no funds, etc. So what you're going to throw is going to stay in the environment for like 3-4 years. And plastic itself does not disappear, it does not degrade. So from the time production is began, that plastic is still in the environment, you know. So we also need to change our mindset, the concepts that we have regarding plastic, regarding the responsible usage. And then what we need to do is also learn to reuse, reduce, and recycle. So we need to come up with ways to actively recycle our products. As I showed earlier, a lot of these products are very difficult to recycle. We don't know how to recycle them. We, as the youth of today, need to come up with these plans so that we can sustain the future generations. You know, so that's all I can say for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the talk, and these are the acknowledgements, and I'm open for questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you very, very much, Raeesa, for this wonderful presentation. Really, really insightful and educative. Thank you so much for taking us through global production of plastics, the types of plastics, the quantity found in like the 5 oceans, and coming down to how we can, mitigate, reduce the the concentration of or the quantity of plastics in our environment, and most especially in our marine system. Thank you so much. It's really, really insightful. Yeah, I really love it. It's really like apt and concise and straight to the point. Thank you very much. I think it's time for question now. If anyone has any question, you can ask a question. Any question for Raeesa? Okay, let me start. Let me ask a question. So you talk about the quantity of plastic found in the 5 oceans, the global oceans that we have. Is there any connectivity in plastic distribution between the oceans, or is there a way in which maybe plastic pollution in one particular ocean is like emptying itself to the other? Is there any connectivity between those oceans that we mentioned, or those plastic found in the ocean are a product of the municipality of that particular geopolitical area?
Yes, Adetola. So I'm gonna start. So the ocean has no borders, right? So what happens down south is going to affect the ocean up north, right? So because of waves, your currents, all of those things. So ideally, everything does flow from one to the other. The most polluted ocean at the moment is your Pacific Ocean, like we all know, with the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. We've got a lot of, okay, it's not shown clearly on this map, like I said, but I'm sure it'll be updated by this year or so. And I'm sure it has increased exponentially. And also, what I know is with South Africa, okay, we bordering 2 oceans, which is we're bordering the 2 oceans, the Indian and the Atlantic. So what happens is here also with regards to municipal waste, right? Our municipalities, especially near coastal areas, have agreed to discharge wastewater into the ocean, right? So that also it's one of the main focuses of my studies at the moment, is to look at the amount of plastic going in, as well as the detrimental effect of antibiotic resistant dispersal into the ocean. So ideally it ties into each other. So I guess, like I said before, ocean has no borders. What happens down south affects up north, and it's just unfortunate. Hope that answered your question.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Any other question, guys? Any question? Okay, another question. So there's this sentence that comes out whenever we are having marine pollution discourse. And it says by 2050, the quantity of plastic in our ocean will be more than fish that we have. Yes. So now looking at the efforts being taken in terms of ocean cleanups and coastal education and like waste management and all these things, do you think by 2050 we can go as low as that sentence is saying?
Yes. You know, Adetola, as I shared before, right? From plastic production is increasing exponentially, right? Yeah. So in this one slide that I showed you, let me just go back.
The first two. The global production.
Here's it. So this plastic production, 640 million metric tons were produced from 1940 up to 2016. So that was the total, 640 that was quantified. But then plastic production from 2017 has been at 348 million metric tons produced per year. So if that is produced every year from 2017, I think the statement that everybody is making is the truth. There's going to be more plastic because we are irresponsibly using plastics, right? We're disposing them incorrectly. More is being made because they're not being recycled. You understand? So I guess with this, the way that we're getting on right now, it's going to be a plastic pandemic. There's going to be more plastic in the sea than fish. And I think with the results, I personally didn't believe it until we started with this study, this desktop study that we presented at one of the Seno cohorts. I don't know if you attended them, but yes, we presented it there and it was quite surprising.
Wow, wow, wow. So I think we have some questions here. The first one says, can you talk about the fate of plastics generally?
Okay, so the fate of plastic generally is that you have your plastics that are produced. Okay, so with regards to the fate, right? I'm not very clued up on it, but I can give you some insight with regards to what I've been reading in that sense. So you have your plastics that are produced, and then, like I say, with obviously it's used. You have your okay, it's plastics, and then you have microplastics, right? So obviously, microplastics are because of environmental degradation, but microplastics are classified into two. It's your primary and your secondary microplastics, right? So your primary microplastics are produced in smaller, like it's produced at that size, 5 millimeters, and that's mostly used in your facial products, your toothpaste, your personal care products. Then your secondary microplastics are all of those plastics that I mentioned. Those are then broken up into smaller microplastics. From microplastics, they go to nanoparticles. And like I say, they can even go smaller, but they still remain in the environment. So what happens is that with these microplastic pieces, for instance, in the ocean, they bioaccumulate, and then you have the aquatic biota. They cannot distinguish between food and plastic, so they ingest that, right? And then it builds up, and ideally then these plastics are now transferred up the food chain. I read a study where there was plastic found in breast milk. So it was very interesting. I'm not, like I say, I don't know. I don't know if I can answer your question wholly with regards to the life cycle, but I think that's the best I can do right now for you.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So another question we have here is, recycling of plastic waste also leads to production of microplastic in our marine environment. How can we mitigate this?
So I guess recycling is an alternative, because if you recycle your plastic, there's going to be less plastic produced, obviously. So whatever is in the environment is then going to be used. I personally, I'm still looking for the question of mitigating microplastics. I'm still researching.
Looking at during the process of recycling, like why recycling those plastics, that there could be production of microplastic during that process. So how can we mitigate the production of microplastic during the process of recycling plastics?
Oh, during the process.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think I can answer that question either for you, Adetola. I guess, like I say, I mentioned with one of the solutions was that we need to find ways to actually recycle these plastics, So I work mostly with regards to surveillance studies and quantifying plastics, etc. I've been exposed to most of that. So when it comes to the recycling industry, it's something that I feel like we all need to touch on as well. Adetola, what are your thoughts on this? I know that you also touched a bit on recycling.
Yeah. So I actually don't have an idea of how many microplastic is being produced during the process of recycling plastic. So I understand the process, but then I don't know if it's produces microplastics along the way. Like why
Yeah.
recycling the plastic? So I don't know how much. I don't, unless maybe I have to like just check online and read something about like production of
Yeah.
microplastic during the recycling of plastic. So which would be very, very interesting to also like understand if that is also like a source of microplastic in our environment, you know.
Could it be possible in that sense? Because
Yeah,
also microplastics derive from like environmental degradation. That's the most micro like the most common polluter is because of environmental degradation. So
it's true.
with recycling, I feel like it's a less pollutant in that sense. It doesn't. I think they would not be able. They wouldn't. It wouldn't go into our aquatic ecosystems, etc., etc. So yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Uh, okay, maybe if I have more knowledge about this, then I can reach out to this person and maybe like just give the person maybe an accurate answer or a more like uh substantive answer.
Yeah.
So the last question we have here is there a direct relationship with regards to population being a factor for increase in plastic pollution? I think should be plastic pollution. Like, is there a relationship, is there a direct relationship between the increase in human population and increase in plastic, the quantity of plastic in our environment? I
Yes.
don't.
Yeah. So I think the question is basically, does the increase of population increase plastics? I think I did mention it here as well in one of my slides. Um, let's just go down to the slide before we answer the question.
Okay.
Here's it. So the main drivers of plastic pollution in aquatic ecosystems are human population growth, urbanization, industrialization. Because ideally, the higher the population, right, the
Yeah.
more you're going to consume plastics,
Yeah.
the more wastewater is generated, the
Mm.
more plastics forms a large part of um, a component of wastewater as well, you know? So that goes into the environment. More plastic is generated, your carbon footprint is increased. So ideally, it's a direct proportionate in that sense. Yeah.
Okay. 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 That is all the question we have here. Is there any more question before we round up? Lastly, how would you describe the effectiveness of cleanup activities being conducted by like global cleanup activities? How will you describe the effectiveness in curbing plastic pollution in our environment?
Yo, that is a question I've been asking. Okay, so here are my thoughts on this, right?
Yeah.
If we don't have proper infrastructure to recycle the plastics that we are collecting, where is
Yeah.
it going to after the cleanups? Right? That's one aspect to it.
Sure.
The second thing, like I'm not against cleanups, right? Cleanups are great, but I feel like you need to have a good sorting facility in order for you to effectively remove plastics from the environment.
Yeah.
Also, if you don't, right, it's a motivation because you engaging the communities, you're engaging people you showing them that hey, this is not right, this is what plastic is doing to our environment, we need to be responsible about that. Every action has a reaction. You
Yeah.
are responsible. So by having these cleanups, it motivates people to actually say, you know what, this is what I can do to give back to the environment. So I'm doing these cleanups. It's hard work, yes, but then in the back of your mind, you're going to think twice before using another plastic product or before throwing
Yeah.
something out of the window. You
Sure.
know, so psychologically also it has an impact. So
Mm.
yes, but my major issue is that I feel like we as young people need to come up with more ideas, innovative ideas, in order to implement proper, effective infrastructure for recycling.
Yeah. Yeah. I think curbing, mitigating marine plastic pollution requires a multifaceted approach, like from plastic cleanups in our environment, in the drainage. Can you mute? No. Mr. Oluwayomi, please mute your mic.
Okay.
Okay. So I believe that it requires a lot of different approach, not only clean ups, not only marine education, like waste management strategy, putting that in place, reducing plastic production, reusing the plastic that we have already, recycling it, and reducing the amount of plastic we even use. So it requires a lot of different approaches for us to be able to like effectively reduce the plastic in our environment. So it requires a lot of different approaches, different strategies, and like you said, innovative ideas as well will also go a long way to combat marine plastic pollution in our environment. Okay. Yeah. Any other question before we round up the session? It's 5 already. Anyone? Seems there's nobody. Okay, thank you so much, Raeesa. Thank you for honoring our invitation. I am really appreciative of you. Thank you so much for coming, for dishing out this interesting and educative piece of information. And yeah, I'm really grateful. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining as well.
Adetola, for having me. And thank you everyone for listening.
Yeah, bye. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.